here is an important update for the sketch tool. Let's drag out the sketch tool. If you've never used the sketch tool before, I'm going to include a link at the end of the video that goes into detail about the basics of the sketch tool. But ultimately, you're plotting down points to create a shape that will then become an object. You finish the sketch, and there's your object. Click on it again, you can get back into the sketch. Not only that, you can select these points and change how that line behaves as it passes through these points. You can make it so that this line now is no longer a corner, but a rounded, smooth curve. It can also adjust how that line behaves as it moves through that point. But there is another feature now. Let's draw out another box. You're going to notice that when you complete this shape, you also now have this button down here called stroke settings. And if you click on that, you can turn the stroke path on. And when you do that, this drawn box that you've just created instead becomes a bit of a frame. And what's happened here is that you've now added on, according to the settings, 2 millimeters to the inside surface of that frame. And if we finish the sketch, you can see what you've created. So let's re-enter this sketch because there is still more to talk about. Let's select our object on the right and let's open up our stroke settings. So there is a button here for alignment options, and it's going to determine how you want to build off of this frame. It could be built off of the inside surface or off of the outside surface, or that lined frame can serve as the midpoint for this body. So by default, the width slider is set to 2 millimeters, and that means it will add on a thickness of 2 millimeters onto your lined frame. And of course, by using the slider or by entering in a value, you can change the width to whatever you like. And there is still more, because this setting here allows you to change how your outside corners will look. Right now, they are set to sharp corners. I can round them off, or I can set them as beveled. Finish sketch, and this is what you're left with. But that is not all. So with another sketch, let's take a look at, again, drawing this shape. We'll do a square. Now before, in Sketch, you always had to complete a shape. We were not allowed to essentially leave a shape unfinished, meaning that if I had something like this, I was not allowed to essentially move on from this until I had completed a shape. But that is no longer the case, because here, this check mark is going to signal that you're going to leave the shape as is, as an open path. And now this line that we've established here, even though it does not complete a shape, it is going to toggle it automatically into the stroke settings, where you've now automatically turned on this feature. And essentially, you can take this and do all of those things that we were doing before with that completed shape, except now you're just building off of this line that you've created here. And it uses that line as that center point and builds the shape off of either side of this line. As I did before, I can change the width of this body coming off of this line. I can also change how it behaves, again, just like we did before, at those edges or corners. Is it going to be a rounded corner or maybe a beveled edge? Another feature allows you to change how these ends are going to look. So if I click on this, I can round them off, square them off, or just leave it flat like that. Finish sketch. This is your new object. So a pretty cool update, but an update that starts to really open up the sketch tool even more. This little tool right here, alongside all these other shapes, is a pretty powerful tool. So the sketch tool is an awesome tool. It's also a very interesting tool in the sense that it's kind of hidden in those shapes on that right-hand side. And I do think it's an important part of moving forward from Tinkercad, because Tinkercad is a great entry-level 3D modeling online web-based software. and it's made by Autodesk. And Autodesk also makes a more comprehensive software called Fusion. Now, I've been just starting to get into Fusion, trying to make sense of it, trying to figure it out. And it's not the same as Tinkercad. When I put Tinkercad alongside Fusion, there's not a lot of overlap between those two programs. And I think that's what makes it pretty difficult to make the jump from Tinkercad to Fusion. However, in just my early steps with Fusion, I do notice that the interface, or how you have to think about making shapes in Fusion, kind of reminds me of the sketch tool. So maybe this is the plan from Autodesk, trying to build upon the sketch tool as a way to help move users from Tinkercad to Fusion, if they want to move to Fusion. Anyway, if you are interested in learning the basics about the sketch tool, check out this video here, and we will see you next time.